A tenured professor was removed from the classroom over writing a pro-Palestinian essay. This woman that you're looking at right now, her name is Jody Dean, and she is a tenured professor and a well-known, well-regarded political theorist at Hobart and William Smith Colleges. That's a college in Geneva, New York. And what they've said is, so far, that they have temporarily removed Professor Dean from her classroom because of an article that she wrote celebrating Palestinian resistance to Israel. I know sometimes when I tell you all these stories, y'all like, he must be leaving something out. He must be not telling us something. There must be a missing piece because there's no way that somebody got taken out of their classroom who's tenured. There's no way that somebody got stopped in the middle of a semester because of an article they wrote. I wish I could tell you that I'm not telling you everything. I wish I could tell you that I'm leaving something out. Let me show you the article. A couple weeks ago, on Verso Books blog, actually a week ago, Jody Dean, again, professor at a serious liberal arts institution, Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, New York. She writes a blog called Palestine Speaks for Everyone. And the byline here says, against those who would separate good and bad Palestinians resisting occupation and onslaught, Jody Dean writes in defense of the radical universal emancipation embodied in the Palestinian cause. And I won't, y'all can find the article yourselves, but basically what she talks about is her own kind of response to the Hamas invasion of Israeli territory, the Hamas attacks on October 7th, from the paragliders to the shock of the Israeli military. She invokes people like Leila Khalid and others. And in this piece, which she writes, you know, and you can even see it, this image is a kind of index of what kind of time she's on as a writer. But Jody Dean writes this piece. Again, you may disagree with the piece. She said some things that some people are going to find controversial. She said some things that people are going to find problematic. You know, I think the most problematic line in the whole blog, or not the most controversial line in the whole blog, was when she said in the first line, the images from October 7th of paragliders evading Israeli air defenses were for many of us exhilarating. So she said watching the Israeli paragliders evade Israeli air defenses were exhilarating. She said, here were moments of freedom that defeated Zionist expectations of submission to occupation and siege. In them, we witnessed seemingly impossible acts of bravery and defiance in the face of the certain knowledge of the devastation that would follow. So she's celebrating and honoring Hamas for their attacks on October 7th. Now, you can agree with her. You can disagree with her. I'm not telling you how to feel about this woman. I'm not telling you how to feel about her blog. I'm not telling you how to feel about anything. But what I am telling you is the fact that she wrote that blog should not be the reason why she could be out of a job. She writes that, and I guess people complain. And the university announces that this woman, who is a professor, she's had endowed chairs in politics, that she will not be teaching for the rest of the semester while the school completes an investigation. That's what the president of the university stepped up and says. Now, you know, the president of a university is in charge of not just setting the kind of course for the university and being the face of the university. The provost runs a lot of the day-to-day academic stuff, right? But the president is the fundraiser, the president is the face, the president is the one who catches the heat when things don't go well, and the one who gets the love and the praise when things do go well. That's just how universities work. Well, this president, of course, quick to make it very clear that he's not feeling her words. Again, he could have said nothing. But he says we can never and will never condone or praise violence, particularly when that violence is directed at individuals based on their religion, race, or national origin. Now, that comment seems harmless and empty and like a paint by the numbers university administrator response, but it's not. First of all, university president didn't have to comment on Professor Dean's comment at all. And I've been here, I've been in this exact place. But he made a point to signal to the world, to donors, to the press, to anybody who would be watching this, that he disagreed with Professor Dean. And again, he also has free speech rights. The president, in his capacity as a scholar or as an individual person, can absolutely say, yo, I don't agree with what this woman said. Cool. But when you take a person down, and by take them down, I mean like you literally take them out of their classroom, you temporarily suspend them, and then on top of that, you say we can never and will never condone or praise violence. We can never condone or praise violence. So you didn't condone what kind? It's an interesting choice. It's hard to imagine that a university never condones violence. I wonder where the university was during the Iraq War or during the Persian Gulf War, or what this is an old school university. What would they have said during Vietnam? What were they saying during these other moments? What did they say in response to police violence? What did they say in response to U.S. imperial violence, right? Are they always vocal about those people who condone or praise violence? Are they challenging right-wing faculty who are war hawks and warmongers, people who praise the invasion of Iraq? Probably not. And then they say, particularly when that violence is directed at individuals based on their religion, race, or national origin, which again frames this as anti-Semitic. That's the argument. Now, you can say a lot of things about Hamas, and there are lots of things to be said, and I certainly have made the argument that Hamas is engaging in gross war crimes and contraventions of international law on October 7th. I have no problem saying that. I don't believe history began on October 7th, and I don't have an exclusive critique of Hamas. I look at everybody in the region, and I look at all the pieces and how they connect. But ultimately, I'm focused in prioritizing the oppression of Palestinians with regard to the Israel-Palestine question, because they're the ones who are under the thumb of a settler colonial enterprise. And Hamas is not a global caliphate. Hamas isn't trying to make everybody in the world Muslim, and Hamas isn't trying to attack Jews because they're Jewish. They believe that Israel is an occupying force, and they're at war with Israel. Now, again, I have disagreements with Hamas about civilian targets, about what constitutes a military target, about what constitutes a civilian target, about what to do with hostages. I disagree with Hamas on all those issues I just said. So I'm not supporting or endorsing Hamas, but there is room and space for nuance here, right? It's not good guy, bad guy. It's ain't pro wrestling. But again, you might disagree with my point. You might disagree with my analysis. That's all fair game in the university, except for Palestine. Jody Good hasn't been permitted to have an opinion on Palestine. And if you think I'm reading into this wrong, check out the provost, Sarah Kirk, who followed up on the president's remarks and said that colleges are obligated under Title VI, a federal anti-discrimination law, to investigate potential, quote, hostile environments involving national origin, shared ancestry, or other protected classes. So now they're suggesting that because this woman wrote a critical article about Israel and wrote a piece that praises Hamas, again, would I write a piece that praises Hamas? No, it wouldn't be my political choice, right? It's not my perspective. But because you write one, does that mean that I've created a hostile climate at work? Does that mean that a professor that wears a MAGA hat and makes all the Black people uncomfortable and uneasy, are they creating a hostile climate? Should they be removed from their posts? When the bell curve came out, which was some intellectual pseudoscience BS that basically made Black people inferior, that was a national bestseller. People all over the world debated it and discussed it. It was a serious book written by a psychologist named Richard Herdenstein, and a political scientist named Charles Murray. And lots of people were outraged. Lots of people were offended. Lots of people were insulted. Because the book was making connections between race and intelligence, ultimately, taking us back to a kind of eugenicist moment. But nobody said, oh my God, what's the campus climate going to be like in a place where the professors think that Black people aren't as smart because they're Black? No, then it's free speech. Then it's academic integrity and autonomy. It's you can say what you want. I defend to death your right to say it. Ain't that what the right wingers say? I disagree with you, but I defend to the death your right to say it. That's what they tell us. And yet, when it comes to left-wing ideas, when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to critiques of empire, now everybody's a snowflake. Now nobody can take a real critique. Now it's, oh my God, what will that do for the school climate? I'm sure those kids, those students, I mean, I call them kids, they're grown, sort of. I'm sure those students at Hobart and William Smith colleges were not randomly looking up blogs on their political science professor to see if they'd written anything objectionable about Hamas. I suspect that's not how that went down. What actually happens, and this happens to me every day, is if you say something that people don't like on social media, they tag your job or they call the job or they write an email to the job. They had a whole department at Temple University reserved just for fielding calls about my crazy ass. Universities fold. Universities fold. They don't want the smoke. They don't want the beef. They don't want the controversy. They don't want the bad press. And so university administrators, the ones who don't have any integrity, they will very, very quickly throw you under the bus. They will very, very quickly give some perfunctory nod to free speech. Oh, I respect Professor, Smith's right to free speech. We also want to say that we don't support anti-Semitism in any form or fashion. Okay. Why are we having that conversation? None of us support anti-Semitism, right? We're all on the same page here. But when you say you support my right to free speech as an academic and then follow it with you oppose anti-Semitism or you oppose harming people because of their national origin or religion or race, you're basically inviting the reader to believe that you think that's what that professor's doing. When did universities become so afraid of ideas? Oh, I remember when the right was complaining about all the crazy radical professors. Where they at, though? People are asking, Mark, how do we advocate for her? Do we call the provost or the dean? You should call the provost's office. You should call the dean's office. You should call the department chair's office. You should call the board. You should also call the media. We will put as much attention and spotlight on what's happening as possible.